This is presented by Etna Interactive, sponsored by Analtus. Analtus invited us to speak to their clients, and we're very happy to be here and talk about this important topic. This is a re-recording of a webinar originally broadcast on Tuesday, the 29th of July. We had a technical glitch in the recording, so I am doing this recording to make sure that this content is available to everybody who wants it. My name is Al Ferguson. I'm the Business Development Manager at Etna Interactive. Etna Interactive is a digital marketing agency specializing in the aesthetic marketplace for over 10 years. Now, I have a slide up here of a man many of you will recognize. Michael Phelps is the greatest Olympic medal earner of all times. I think he has over 18 or about 18 gold medals and others. And he has a great quote that I think applies to local search. He said, if you want to be the best, you have to do things that other people aren't willing to do. There are a few things that I really want to emphasize about local search. The three main points are that there are opportunities to gain page one position on Google as well as other search engines with local search, that local search engine optimization is different than traditional search engine optimization that you've done for your website. And the third is that local has become more complex and competitive. There are great rewards if you're willing to take steps to optimize yourself for local search, because there's page one real estate to be earned. Now, this webinar is going to have two parts. The first, I'm going to talk about local search, what it is, what it looks like, how it works. And the second part will have actionable steps you can take to improve your position and hopefully gain some of that page one real estate. So let's start off looking at what local search looks like. I did a search for plastic surgeons. I used Google search tools here to set my location to Shreveport, Louisiana. So this is a search I conducted that makes it look like I'm searching from Shreveport for plastic surgeons. And you'll see a very typical looking little group of results. We have web listings above and then more web listings below what are local search listings, or often called a map pack or map results, pack of 3 in this case, or a pack of 7 often. The real point here is that the tactics it takes to rank here in this map group are separate from the tactics it took to get this client. And it is one of our clients, a little bias here, but it's separate from the tactics it took to get them to rank well for the organic listing. So again, whatever is required to rank locally different than the organic listing. Here's another look at a different local search view. This is Google Search's carousel. And this carousel is a way of more or less leveling the playing field here. It's a horizontal deployment of the search results, and it gives the ability to show a picture. It has how many reviews and their overall rating. It has the name of the business, how much the average price is, and what kind of restaurant it is. We're not seeing this kind of view in the aesthetic place, but we might, so it's worth taking a quick look. Another key area that local search comes into play is mobile. You may have heard of the statistic that 40% of all searches are now coming through a mobile device. It's predicted that that number will reach 50% by the end of 2014. That's half the searches are on mobile device, so obviously it becomes very important how you show up on a mobile device. And what you might notice right away is that on this search for medical spas, again, my local area is San Luis Obispo, California, is that half the space of the screen is taken up with advertisements. And then there's the map group showing the pins on the map. And one business called Adara Med Spa here shows up above the fold on the screen. And if that's the only local result showing below the ads, that business is likely to get a lot of clicks. If we were to scroll down, we would see another 6 local search listings, and then well below that, all of the organic listings. And when you're on a phone and trying to make quick decisions, you're more likely to get clicked if you're way up here. So local search becomes incredibly important when we're talking about mobile. And as we just said, mobile is really taking over the search landscape, so we really have to pay attention to it. Now, it's very timely that we're doing this webinar today. On July 24th, Google updated their search algorithm, the Hummingbird algorithm, with what we're calling a pigeon update. Now, pigeon has changed the local search behavior quite a bit. There are three major pieces to that. One is that Google is using their very mature web search capabilities to rank local businesses. So more of the authority and importance of a website that they've been able to determine over time with their considerable capabilities is now being used to rank local. We are also seeing that map packs are a lot less common for procedure searches. So that would mean if we're searching for breast augmentation or Botox or laser hair removal in a particular area, we're less likely to see a map group, but those map packs are still very prominent for categorical searches like dermatologist or plastic surgeon. The other big change is that map packs are now featuring results from wider geography. As we'll look at in a moment, the map groups were limiting local search results to the city that you were in when you searched or the city that was in your search query. Even if you were a block away and your service area included a larger metro area, and that's where most of your patients came from, and you were a very prominent practice with good web rankings, you just wouldn't show up if your address wasn't actually in that city. That's changed, and that's good news for all the practices that have spent a lot of time and effort marketing themselves, because now you're more likely to show up in local search. So let's take a really close look at a local search listing. In this case, dermatologist Boston was the search. So we have the search engine result page right in front of us. You'll see there's 3 organic listings at the top. And then as we scroll down, you'll see that there's 3 local search results listing, another 4 as we scroll, and then another group of web listings or organic listings below. Now I'm going to pan out on this so you can see the whole page. You won't be able to see the details, but I want to color code it for you so that you will be able to we'll just dissect this together. So that map group, local listings, again, pins on the map. There you can see some Google reviews here. It's all local listings. And then above and below are the web listings. When you look at those, we have a medical rating site at the top. That's Health Grades up there. Then a local media outlet, Boston Magazine. It's a prominent local magazine. A national media outlet, U.S. News Health Report. And then below the the local results, we have a couple listings from Yelp. And then national scheduling software, ZocDoc, shows 2 listings. So in all of that, the only local businesses shown so far are in this local search group. And then down below, there's 3 other local businesses, if you will, local practices, but 2 of those are hospital networks. Now, just as recently as a year ago, hospital networks weren't showing up for local search for a specialty at all. But now, just because of their authority, their prominence in the local and regional area, Google is listing those for some of these categorical searches and sometimes procedural searches. So that leaves room for 1 private practice down at the bottom. And again, this is one of Etna's clients. And so in all of this search, we have local businesses listed. In this case, they were all within Boston. We might now see practices from Wesley or Brookline just next to Boston that serve the Boston area and easy for Bostonites to get to. So that is a positive change. And then 1 little area for 1 listing of a private practice in all of those organic results. So the point here is that the regional battle for first page rankings now involves fighting bigger powers. So these superpowers are people like Yelp or Health Grades, big national media outlets like U.S. News, and then prominent local media outlets. And you're also fighting against large institutional players that have authority in your community just because of their size and the duration that they've been around. So you're having to look at how to play against those players. So you really need to look at expanding the strategy for that changing local landscape. And the questions that you have to ask are, how will you improve your web and map rankings when Google's detecting where you are sitting, and they know where you are? How will you improve your web and map rankings when the search phrase references location, as in dermatologist of Boston? And how will you address mobile opportunities? You really have to expand your strategy and consider all of these. In fact, you have to run local optimization in tandem with your traditional SEO. It's no longer sufficient to do quality SEO on your website and think that transfers over to local. There are specific steps that you have to take. The rest of this webinar is going to outline those steps. Before I jump into those steps, let's take a quick look at what factors really influence local search. I took this slide from Moz.com. Moz is a search think tank. They do a lot of research and sell some tools online. Then they do a lot of surveys. This survey was an industry-wide survey about what factors affect local ranking the most. And rather than go through each one of these in detail, because if you want to do that, just write down this URL. You can go dive deep into here if you want to get geeky. They get real into it. But I'll distill it down to the 4 places or 4 factors that you can influence the most and take action upon. Those are place page signals, external local signals, traditional SEO signals, and review signals. So again, whatever these areas are saying to Google is important and plays a big role in how you rank. First, let's look at place page signals. What we're talking about here is your Google Places for Business page. This is where you can tell Google what your legal business name is, your description. You can put up photos. You can have appropriate categories. It's the first place Google is going to go to look to see who you say you are and what you do and what you look like. And Google really likes it when you fill this out very carefully. The next thing you want to do is make sure there are no duplicate or incorrect place pages. It's not hard for pages to be created by someone who wants to leave a review of your practice, or maybe a vendor did it and you didn't know, and then a second vendor created another one. You never know how it happens, but it does. I can guarantee you there are duplicate pages out there. So you want to eliminate those and make sure that there's only one and that you claim it and it's yours. And then you want to ensure your name, address, and phone number appear authoritative. In fact, if there's one thing I really want you to get here, it's the NAP. Now, obviously, we don't want you to fall asleep, but it has its own acronym because it's so important. NAP stands for name, address, and phone number. And by authoritative, we mean it should be the address that the post office knows, that you know is your real address, and that is going to appear everywhere on the web. This is where you want to make sure that that NAP is consistent and shows up very well. Let's take a look at what a Google Places for Business local page looks like. So the Center for Cosmetic Surgery, it's just outside of Denver. Again, it's one of our clients. They're in Golden, Colorado. They've got a picture of the practice, photos of the doctors here, the contact information. You can write a review. This is also a place where you can have posts and people can comment about you, so it's really a social media, not unlike your Facebook page. Shows the reviews. Now, we talked about name, address, and phone number and being authoritative. So if we look at this address, and it says 725 Heritage Road, number 100, but it's Heritage RD, no period, number sign 100, Golden, Colorado. So we want this address to say 725 Heritage RD, no period, number sign 100 on their website. We want RD, no period, number sign 100 on their Yelp page, on Real Self. In anywhere that they're going to show up on the internet, we want it to be RD, no period, number. It's important that your name, address, and phone number is accurate down to the punctuation and spacing. Now, there was a question that came up, and it was if you want to change your name, address, and phone number or tweak it to match something, is it time-consuming? And it can be, because you have to search out wherever that name, address, and phone number is and make sure it's consistent everywhere. That process can take some time. Additionally, there may be places where your address is incorrect, where you don't know it's displayed or posted. And other sites, other web powers might be scraping content and then reposting that address somewhere else. So setting up some Google alerts for that, the incorrect address, and then making, or your name, and making sure that you keep correcting that. This process not only can be time-consuming in just hours, but may take many months or even a year or two, and you need to keep checking that. So that's a great question. So now we're going to take a look at the external local signals. This is what other websites, other people might be saying about you and how that affects your local search ranking. The first thing you need to do are claim and ensure that your consistent NAP is on all prominent local sites. We're talking Yelp, Real Self, Internet Yellow Pages, could be local directories in your area. Anywhere you show up, again, has to have that exact name, address, and phone number, as in RD, no period, number, sign, 100. Then you want to work to eliminate conflicting business listings. Just like Google+, it's possible you have 2 Yelp pages. Maybe you had a partner that left your practice and they had a web page with your name, address, and phone number, so you need to get things cleaned up and as consistent as possible. Then you also want to cultivate structured and unstructured media coverage. So structured business listings are what we've been talking about. Places like Google+, Yelp, all those places, all those sites have fields for your name, field for your address, field for your phone number. So those are structured, and it's easy for search engines to tell exactly what your name, address, and phone number are. So those are very important. Unstructured citations are also very important. Well, citations is a new word. We'll talk about that a little bit. Many of you are likely familiar with link building in your traditional SEO efforts. And links are coming from a site, another site, maybe in your area, or another website of authority in your field, and linking to your site. And that link in traditional SEO is a signal to Google that someone likes your content, thinks you're a good practice, and that you're important. And prominent and powerful links are very good for traditional SEO. Well, in a similar way, anytime your name, address, and phone number is cited or mentioned on the web, and Google can detect it and link it to your business pages, your Google Plus business page, name, address, and phone number, that's very good for your local search. So you want to make sure anytime you're cited on the Internet, it's consistent with that name, address, and phone number on your Google Plus business page and your website and everywhere else it can show. So if you haven't gotten tired of that NAP yet, it's another place you have to make sure. And I hope you're not too tired of the NAP, because we're going to talk about it again here in traditional SEO signals. So your NAP, that name, address, and phone number, should be on every page of your website. Often it's in the footer, could be in a sidebar, needs to be somewhere there, this time with schema markup. Now, schema is a little techie here, getting a little geeky on you, but schema markup is a convention of code that all major search engines have agreed to use. And what it does is it allows your web developer to use code that specifically tells the search engines what your name, address, and phone number is. In a way, it's a way of creating a structured listing or a structured citation of your own name, address, and phone number on your website. So schema is easy to learn about. You can go to schema.org and find out more. Your web developer likely knows about schema, and if they haven't used it yet, make sure they are using the schema to tell Google exactly what your name, address, and phone number is. Next, you want to cultivate domain authority and inbound links. So domain authority just means that your domain, your URL, your website is important, looks important to the local community as well as in general. Inbound links are very good for that. We talked a little bit about it, but inbound links from local businesses, especially the local authority, like a local media outlet, local bloggers, other people in the aesthetic industry, if they're linking to your site, that's very positive for local search. And then you want to make sure that you're referencing your city and state in your web page titles. Sounds like fairly common SEO tactics, and it is. Just make sure it's being done. And it's all these are little steps to make sure that the right signals are being sent to tell the search engines about who you are, where you are, and what you do. All of those help for your local search. Now, the last set of signals we're going to look at come from review sites. So what you really want to do is earn native reviews on Google plus local. So you saw some of the search results that we saw, especially the local search there. There was reviews under there, star ratings, how many reviews, and most of those are Google plus reviews. And you want to have as many as you can. Now, I had a couple questions about this come up. So one person asked, are there any tips for getting Google plus reviews? They've printed out cards. They're detailing instructions on how to write a review, and it's just hard to get patients to follow through. And that was echoed by another listener. They said they've been focusing on getting reviews on Vitals and Real Self because Google Plus is so difficult. Well, it is difficult. Google Plus requires you to have an account, and it doesn't seem to be as easy to navigate to and find as some of the other review sites, so it is tough. But it's tough for every business, and really you need to keep trying. Having native reviews on Google Plus is very powerful and very important. So maybe it's about asking people if they're familiar with Google, and if they are, making sure you give them that card. If they say, oh, no, I don't bother with Google, but I love to leave reviews on Yelp, make sure they get a tool to help them get to your Yelp site. And in that way, you'll find people who will do Google+, and it is important. Of course, you also need to quote reviews on those third-party websites. So in general, you need to ask people if they'll write a review and encourage them to go to Google+. Yelp is very powerful. Part of this Pigeon update seems to be giving Yelp lots of authority and showing up well on page 1. So in a way, third-party reviews, getting those on Yelp, it not only protects your reputation, it not only helps on your local search because the search engines can read those reviews and they are paying attention to what people say about you. But there's an added advantage that if Yelp is given page 1 real estate and you get more good reviews on Yelp and you begin to climb up those rankings, you are in effect taking advantage of Yelp's #1 listing. So there are many benefits to getting reviews, and the reputation management is a whole nother webinar, but there are benefits there, of course, as well. So to get those reviews, to get the best reviews, you want to attract what we call authority reviewers. Now, authority reviewers are people who are active on these communities. People who are familiar with Google+, for example, and write long, detailed, rich text reviews. These are reviews that might contain keywords that will be descriptive of you and the practice and say a lot. They're often quoted by search engines or at least read by search engines, so those are very important reviewers to be courting. You also need to be consistent. Now, when we talk to our practices, our clients about this and reputation management, they'll often get excited. They'll start to make a big effort, and we'll see some reviews come, and they'll have a number of reviews for a month or two, but then it begins to tail off as the concept of reviews and getting them begins to fade out of their mind. And then the review sites kind of look at it and say, oh, they had a bunch of reviews for a little while, but then nothing. Maybe that means they did some kind of a push and advertised for them or coerced those reviews. Maybe those reviews aren't really very authentic if they had to be pushed for, and they might filter or suppress those reviews. So what they really like to see are 1 or 2 reviews coming across every month, month in, month out, and authentic reviews that are from different users and are saying different things. That makes the review sites happy that you're active in the community, that their users are willing to say something about you, and you're more likely to have those reviews stick, and that's going to help you more, and it'll help with the local search. So the signals that review sites send, what other people say about you on the web is important. So very important place to pay attention to. So Michael Phelps raised the bar in swimming. He raised the bar as an Olympian. And Google has raised the bar on local search. So it's more complex. It's more difficult. There are more players out there, and you're fighting against some big players. And you have to do those different steps in order to rank locally. But as Michael Phelps said, if you're willing to take those steps, you will reap the rewards. And if you want to be great, you have to take those steps. So I hope you enjoyed this content. I hope it was helpful to you. If you want to learn more, please subscribe to our newsletter at etnainteractive.com. You can also follow us on Facebook. Just search for Etna Interactive. And you're free to email me at al@etnainteractive.com. And now I'm just going to cover a couple more questions that came through in the webinar. One person asked about microsites. If you have procedure-specific sites, for example, and how do they figure into local, and what impact do they have? And the answer is that they're less likely to be prominent in local. They're less likely to have anywhere near the authority that your primary site is. Now, it's not impossible that they might rank for local, but because your main site is where you want your authority to be and where you want people to find you, concentrate your local efforts on your main site. One person asked, are reviews beginning to mean more than any other effort to retain rankings? And the answer would be not necessarily, but they are important. They're one of the top 4, and that's why we covered it. The most important is the Google Places for Business page and your local page there. So you want to work on those. And then citations and your name, address, and phone number are also extremely important. So it is one of the bigger factors, but not the most important one. And one person asked, how do you get reviews to show up most recent first and work backwards? We really don't have control over what reviews show up where. Each review site has their own policies on what reviews show up and whether it's chronological or what ones seem to be best or the most prominent or best written. It's very difficult to tell exactly how that order is going to be. And then there was an important question about what if you have 2 doctors in one office? How can 2 doctors claim the same address? Now, we did have a slide where you saw the Wall Center in Shreveport, Louisiana, and then 2 doctors listed under the same address. And the general guidelines for Google Plus Local and Google Plus Business pages are that you have 1 business and 1 address. However, there seems to be an allowance that you can have a practice and then there's an individual name, and that you can have a business page for each one, and they're able to figure out that there is a business and individuals in the business. So it can work that way. The difference, though, is if these 2 doctors have different brand names and different business entities, and they're each on the exact same address, and then they have different websites, as it apparently these doctors do, that are each claiming that address, and then they both claim the address, then you just have to imagine what Google thinks. Now, Google's looking at it and thinking, well, is this that one practice left and another one took that space? Which is the practice that left? Which is the one that came? Can we trust which business is there? And in a way causing Google to question the authoritative or the authority of that name, address, and phone number. So if you're in a situation where there are two doctors in the exact same building, can they have separate suite numbers? Can they use those different suite numbers to create separate Google Places pages and thereby avoid confusing and any questioning that Google will have with the authority of that name, address, and phone number? That would be a much better way to go. So those are all the questions. Again, I thank you for listening, and I hope this was helpful, and we look forward to talking to you with our next webinar.